Yankees Files podcast. We are back. I'm Will Harris, you're Alec Whipple, and the rest of you are fans of the team that has the best record and run differential in the American League, the most position player Fangraphs WAR in the American League, the highest WRC plus in baseball, and the best World Series odds per PECOTA of any American League team. That team, of course, is the New York Yankees. Whipple, it's coming down to the wire here. The Yankees have a 3-game lead in the American League East with 12 games to play. They have 3 games against the Orioles coming up next week. It's Tuesday evening as we record this, so they're about to kick off their West Coast trip against the Mariners and Athletics in a few hours here. There's a ton to get into on this podcast, including all manner of postseason roster questions and so much more. But first, how are you doing?
I'm happy that we can have those questions. As I mentioned to you before we started recording, I think we would have been pressed for content if we had a second straight postseason-less year for the Yankees. And not that that was really a concern this year, but I think recording late season and definitely a Mariners Athletics West Coast trip in a season where there's no postseason baseball would have been like prime. I don't know what we talk about this week, and I'm kind of done.
Yeah, it would have been like trivia and remember some guys. And
yeah, I think we did all we could last year to keep, it interesting. But
I think we did. I think we did a good job.
I'm happy. I'm happy with where the Yankees are. I'm really happy by the last week of baseball that we saw. And I'm happy to be talking about the upcoming, barring a really epic and kind of complex collapse, because I think it would involve like so many different combinations of teams winning and losing that statistically probably very improbable for the Yankees not to make the postseason. I'm just excited to be getting ready for these last 2 weeks and for the Yankees to be in, I think, as good of a position as they've been in all year to close out the division. I mean, it's in their hands for sure. And even, barring, even if they, drop a few of the games against the Orioles, they push the division lead to 3 games. And if they can push it a little farther, those games might not even matter. So barring a complete letdown of a West Coast trip and a dud of a series against the Orioles, which again would still put them at least in wild card position at this point, the Yankees are in a good spot for the AL East title, and lots of good possibilities and scenarios. It's nice to be fans of the team that's not on the outside looking into both of those races and to be in the driver's seat. Whatever happens these last 2 weeks, I mean, the ups and downs of the season so far, having a 3-game lead with 12 games to go is a pretty good spot. And you would sign up for that 1,000 times out of 1,000 if at any point this winter and spring training you said this was what was going to happen. So I'm just happy that this is where we are and this is what we get to talk about. And soon we'll just get to throw it all out the window and have some fun in October.
Yeah. So, I mean, a few points there. At the beginning of play today, again, this is Tuesday evening, the Yankees' magic number for a playoff spot is 3. It could become as small as 1 this evening if the Yankees win and the Royals lose. So, again, that's a combination of wins and losses by the Yankees and the teams trailing them. If the Yankees can get that, somehow to add up to 3, they clinch a playoff spot. So hopefully that happens this week. If it doesn't, there's some problems probably. So to your point, yes, absolutely. It would be a crazy series of events that would be required for the Yankees to miss the playoffs at this point. As I understand it, the magic number for the division is 10. Which means the games against the Orioles will matter unless something like the Yankees going 5-1 this week and the Orioles going 1-5, or the Yankees going 6-0 and the Orioles going 2-4, something like that would have to happen for the Orioles games not to matter. But the Yankees could certainly put enough distance between themselves and the Orioles that they cannot lose the division lead, which they do not stand to win a tiebreaker against the Orioles right now. So they need to win the division to win the division. They need to win the division outright to win the division.
But
But
can't they win a tiebreaker if they sweep?
so
Or
if they sweep the Orioles, they would hold the tiebreaker, but it would be hard for them to sweep the Orioles and then not also win the division outright. Like that would take an unusual series of events.
If any team could pull that series of events off, it would be this team. So let's just not jinx ourselves here. But yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, Pacoda gives the Yankees a chance of better than 90% to win the division. Now I think it's 91.7%. If you told me there's an 8.3% chance that your parachute won't deploy if you jump out of this plane, like I'd probably be pretty nervous about it. Even though most of the time the parachute's going to deploy. So there will be no counting of chickens until they have hatched on this podcast, except for the Yankees making the playoffs. It's honestly possible that there are enough games that will be played between teams that the Yankees lead that like it'll work out that someone's got to lose enough of them that they just make it. But anyway, I think this is the worst timed West Coast trip in history. West Coast trips are agents of chaos. Not only do terrible, awful things happen at 1 a.m. Eastern when the team is on the West Coast, but it's discombobulating. Thankfully, they had the off day going into it, and they have the off day coming out of it. But still, West Coast trips are super weird. Teams famously go to the teams from the East Coast famously go to the West Coast, play poorly, come back, play poorly. The fact that the Yankees have this trip and it's immediately followed with what is likely to be their most pivotal series of the regular season is really, really annoying. And it puts a significant premium on the Yankees playing, at least a game better than the Orioles this week while the Yankees are on the West Coast, because if they don't, they put themselves in a position to lose either the division lead or the effective division lead in that series with Baltimore. And that really scares me. And look, I get someone's got to be playing the Mariners and the A's away at this time, I guess. But man, do I wish that team were not the New York Yankees.
Yeah, it's funny. Like there's only one season in which I remember a West Coast trip being this late. And I actually had to look it up just to confirm.
Wait,
well, see if you remember.
So 2017, I remember Judge hitting a home run in Texas late in the season.
For some reason,
but I don't think counts as a West Coast trip.
Because then you count 2022, and I feel like that in my mind doesn't count as like a true West Coast trip.
I agree, and they had already clinched by the time they got to Texas in 22, right?
Yeah,
or they clinched there. Yeah,
that was like the end. No, they clinched the East, I think, before that.
Yeah, I think so too.
It was in Toronto. Yeah, they clinched in Toronto. So.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then Rizzo was the manager for the game. Yeah.
So it's just because of Judge, I think, we'll watch those games.
Wait, so what's the year that you remember them playing a West Coast trip at the end of the year?
I mean, tell me if there's another one that I'm forgetting, but the only reason I remember this is because a very iconic game, the 2009 team played in Seattle, and like the third to last or second to last week of the season, that was the Ichiro walk-off home run off Mariano.
Oh, and wow.
I don't think, I mean, I could go back and look at the last like 20 years. And I'm definitely missing one, I'm sure. But like, I really can't, in my spot checking kind of confirms like this doesn't happen that much. And I think you're right. It's very disconcerting, both in a sense of weird things happen on the West Coast, but also like time zone wise. I mean, usually I feel like with an Eastern Division team, you have the like Yankees get their West Coast trip out by July or August, and then you're in the same time zone for the rest of the year. But this is, I mean, it's weird for your schedule, sleeping schedule. It's weird baseball wise. I think it should incentivize them to try even harder for the first seed for seeding wise. Not that they wouldn't be trying for that, but avoiding a potential ALDS against a Western team, which is at this point, most likely the Astros. it would be a lot of travel to go, West Coast to East Coast, and then have to go back out west at some point in the next week. Plus, obviously, the Astros. But yeah, I think it's just the West Coast is it's a wild place, and it's rare that I think the Yankees play a game this late and against a team. I mean, the A's are out of it, but the Mariners are right in it and fighting for it, and it's going to be, all systems go for both teams.
Yeah, the Mariners are playing for their playoff lives. PECOTA gives them, coming into play today, a 16.2% chance to make the playoffs, which is like it's like some combination of the Twins miss, the Tigers miss, and the Red Sox miss. Anyway, yeah, playing a desperate team far away, a team that has really good pitching, like it, yeah, everything about it concerns me. And I find it extremely poorly timed. And, I was talking on Twitter, I think it was yesterday, about how the Yankees have played 600 baseball for the past 7 weeks. I think it's the past 52 days at this point. That's since like July 27th. So the narrative that the Yankees have been a middling team for, since June, or however long people want to say it's been, that narrative is wrong. However, the Yankees did go 10-22 or 10-23 for a stretch there. And I've always said that the timing of your wins doesn't matter. And that is absolutely technically true. Every win counts for 100, or every game counts for 162nd of the season. Now, with that said, would I feel more comfortable today if this West Coast trip were less important? And in that way, does the timing of your wins matter? Yeah. Now, it's kind of a tautology to say, I wish the Yankees had more wins today than they do, which is effectively what I'm saying. But it's concerning, and it's unfortunate that they had such a bad stretch of play that it made these games as pivotal as they are. Maybe it's not concerning. It's just unfortunate, because I don't think that stretch was representative of who they are. So it's just unfortunate. But these games matter more than I wanted them to. And look, it's naive, or it would have been naive, to come into the season thinking, with 2 weeks left in the year, the Yankees are going to have put the Orioles away. Anyone who was thinking that, expecting that, like, that's ridiculous. But it sure would have been nice, and the Yankees could be closer to that today. If the Yankees' magic number were 5 or 6 with 12 to play, as opposed to 10, like, I'd like that a lot more. And again, all of that is just me saying I'd be happier if the Yankees had a better record today than they do, which is not novel analysis, but I do feel that way. On the topic of the Orioles, though, Whipple, there's something I wanted to bring up. Over the course of the offseason, you were doing a lot of talking about the plexiglass principle and the Orioles, seriously overachieving last year relative to their, the Pythagorean record, the record you'd predict based on their run differential. You talked about how teams that make these massive leaps forward, as the Orioles did from 2022 to 2023, tend to take a step back. And the Orioles have already clinched that step back from last year. But it reminded me of some other discourse that existed. And I think it was on the Michael Kay show this past offseason. And the question that was frequently posed was, have the Yankees made up 19 games on the Orioles? And I always found that question so funny, because sure, the Orioles won 101 games last year and the Yankees won 82. There's no escaping that. However, acting like the Orioles just started this season with 101 wins banked and they could only go up from there, and the Yankees started from 82 and they had to climb up from there, like, that's not how that works. And it struck me as so silly that that's how people were talking about the division and the situation. Like, with 12 games left last year, the Yankees were 19 games back. So they played the Orioles to a draw in the last 12 games. Does that mean that in the last 162 games, the Yankees have been 22 games better than the Orioles? No, of course it doesn't. And that's why it was so ridiculous in the first place. And I was so tired of it. And I was looking through like some tweets I have bookmarked from people who were being doomers before the season started and just reflecting on a lot of those discussions. And I'm not even sure what the question that I'm getting to is. And maybe you'll just react to this. It just felt so silly that people wanted to install an ordinal ranking in the AL East, but then go beyond that and like try to put actual gaps between the teams before a game had ever been played, before we got to see what the Corbin Burns acquisition did, or what the Juan Soto acquisition did, or what a healthy Carlos Rodon would do, or what a healthy Aaron Judge would do, or any of those things. Like, it's just such a weird way to look at baseball, and it is going to be fun if the Yankees are to win the division to talk about them making up 19 plus however many games on the Orioles, because if that was how the question was posed, then certainly that's what winning the division would mean, right?
Right. I mean, it honestly puts in more perspective just how I think crazy the Yankees last 30 years has been, in which they actually are the team that kind of, in a lot of cases, theoretically, starts off with a high win total and underachieves.
Sure.
I mean, to treat the Orioles like that when really no other team aside from, maybe I'd say the Red Sox in the early or late 2000s has had like a real sustained run of success in this division. Like, don't tell me the Orioles in early 2010s did it when they won, we had like 3 playoff appearances in 5 years. Don't tell me the Rays did it because they sneak into the playoffs every year. Really, the Yankees have been the only team that has consistently rebounded from down stretches to bounce back to the top of the division. And again, I will give the Red Sox from like 2003 to 2011 credit, because they were pretty firmly like at the top. They won titles, they won division titles. But every other team, I mean, they've had their moments, and then we've seen like with the Blue Jays a few years ago and the Orioles last year, the overperformance required to do well ends up being just that, overperformance, and they haven't figured out how to sustain it. And yes, the Orioles are a good team, I don't doubt that, but to again act like they were a built 103, did they win 103? No, 101 last year. To say that that was their baseline and then everybody's getting older and automatically better, and oh, Jackson Holliday's coming up and he's going to be great, and Corbin Burns is here, and now the pitching staff is suddenly elite. I mean, there's just so many things that fails to take into account, like the fact that players can regress instead of progress, and the Yankees have just done an incredible job of, I think, navigating in the aggregate, everyone's favorite word, the overperformance and underperformance fluctuation to largely be at the top of the division in contention most years. I think it impresses me more that they are really the team that Michael Kay is talking about, the team that other opponents have to figure out how to make up games on. The Orioles are just not that. And like, maybe they will be. I'm not going to say what their next 5 to 10 years look like, but it was so predictable, just as it was so predictable that the Blue Jays were going to fall back. The 2021 Blue Jays are the other perfect paradigm. Like,
Yeah,
that
they
team
are.
was a best case scenario team, and everyone heralded it like it was the beginning of a new dynasty. So I don't know what you want me to tell you, because that was also very easy to see coming.
Yeah, the 2021 Blue Jays stuff.
Right. But we like have to give, the Astros credit. And as much as we hate the Astros, as much as we hated the Red Sox, like, they were really good at just, and are really good at being, no matter what, at the top of their division. Like, we've seen it again with the Astros this year.
The
And
Astros play in a weak division and
right.
were cheating for much of their successful run.
Okay. I mean, they're still a largely good
Yes, they're a
team,
largely successful team.
but
That's true.
yeah, there's just some organizations that are able to do that. And I think as baseball commentators, that's like the natural tendency, is like, every time it happens, we want to find the next Houston or the next Boston.
Yeah.
And it's the Yankees are the Yankees. Like, I mean, we can analyze them statistically all they want, but statistically, you should not be able to have a winning season for 30 straight years, right? Like, that defies stats a little bit. So
Whipple, the counterpoint that a lot of people would make here is, well, look at all the money the Yankees spend.
I mean, teams can spend a lot of money and not do well, right? Like, we've seen that all the time too. And the Yankees, again, largely avoid that. You know, they have their ups and downs, but we've never seen what's going on in Boston go on with New York. And I mean, I say Boston because I just want to emphasize how bad of a city Boston is. But the team there is bad, and they've spent a lot of money, and they're cutting payroll, and they'll spend again. And I just don't think there's an easy fix.
Yeah. So I think you nailed it there, which is, first of all, we've seen Yankees teams spend a bunch of money and underachieve. You know, not only last year, which was really a lot of rotten luck and a lot of injuries, but the late George Steinbrenner teams, and I'm not talking about, I don't mean the late as in George Steinbrenner is dead, which he is. I mean toward the end of his period of control of the team. So the late teams controlled by the late George Steinbrenner, I guess is what I mean. Those teams were very unimpressive. I mean, from, what was it, after game 3 of the 2004 ALCS, the Yankees won something like 3 playoff games prior to the 2009 ALDS. Like, and they, you know, played some really unimpressive, uninspired baseball. They made a lot of bad decisions about who should play for them. You know, even like the Randy Johnson situation aside, whether you want to look at Carl Pavano or Javier Vasquez either time, or Esteban Loaiza or Kenny Lofton or Tony Womack, and, you know, some of those guys were there in 04. But anyway, to your point, other teams can spend. Like, it's not a ticket to success to have a high-powered roster. Look at the team that the Red Sox tore down with Adrian Gonzalez and Carl Crawford and all those guys that they had to just, you know, get rid of and ship everyone away. Is it easier to win when you can spend money on known quantities and then get production from those guys? Maybe, but does that also make it harder to acquire controllable young talent? Yeah, it certainly does. So there are trade-offs there. And again, to your point, other teams can and should just go spend that money. And finally, the bottom line is, the thing that matters at the end of the day is your win total, not your dollars per win. There's no trophy for being the, you know, 2018 A's or many of the recent Rays teams, any of the successful Rays teams, really. I'm sure both those teams would prefer to be the 2022 Phillies or the 2019 Yankees, you know, or, you know, insert your high payroll team. I think it's very silly to say, well, look at the Yankees payroll, they should be doing so well. First of all, they are the best team in their league. Second of all, there are systematic disadvantages that come with being a good team with a high payroll, namely in the way you're hamstrung in the acquisition of controllable young cheap players. There's a reason the Orioles had to tank for so long to get Adley Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson and Jordan Westberg and Colton Cowser and all those guys. I find it very silly. The thing that we should applaud is whatever makes you successful that is permitted by the rules.
Yeah. I mean, right. I was going to say basically that, like, you don't get awards for the way you build a team. And in some cases, you know, the teams that get movies made about them are the ones that aren't the most successful teams, like the ones that win titles. So yeah, you can get your Moneyball movie made. I mean, we love Moneyball. Moneyball, great movie.
Great movie.
If I had to choose, you know, I would want the Yankees to win a title over Moneyball, even though I do love Moneyball. And I'd love to see a version made about the Yankees. But like, yeah, you look at like the top teams in payroll and like nobody knows the order. You know, everyone is going to criticize teams no matter how much they spend for spending too much, unless you're like the A's or the Rays. Nobody like memorizes the top 15 teams in payroll and then, you know, gives their like criticism or applause of them proportionally. So, and I mean, if you look at it, like I know the top teams right now are largely in playoff position, but Cubs are 7, Rangers are 8, Blue Jays are 9, Giants are 10, Red Sox are 11, Cardinals are 12. None of those teams are in the playoffs. So you basically
can we talk about the Rangers for a second?
Sure.
So I'm supposed to believe that managers matter a ton, right?
Oh my gosh. Poor Bruce
right?
Bochy. Right.
So Bruce Bochy gets all this credit for the Rangers winning the World Series last year. He knew how to press every button. He knew when to bring in Spores versus Leclerc versus Aroldis Chapman. He knew when to pinch hit this guy and pinch run that guy. The guys wanted to play for him. Adolis Garcia played so well in the postseason because of how motivated he was to win for Bruce Bochy. What now? What now? If Bruce Bochy deserves all that credit for the team that the Rangers were last year, they're now 8 games under 500. So what are we supposed to do with that? What am I supposed to make of that? They're 71 and 79. They were 90 and 72 last year. They've already lost 7 more games than they lost last year. They had to play a wild card series on the road last year too. Let's like pump the brakes on just how incredible the Rangers were anyway. But what am I supposed to do with it? They have a 68 and 82 Pythagorean win-loss. They've been awful. And put the injuries aside, I know that it's hard to win without Corey Seager, but he's basically played as much this year as he did last year. If I'm supposed to believe that Bruce Bochy is such a good manager, why does Adolis Garcia have an 88 OPS plus this year after it was 127 last year? Why has basically every player gotten so much worse? Marcus Semien is a league average hitter this year. He was at 126 last year. Why has it happened? And where, if I was supposed to give him a ton of credit last year, what am I supposed to do with the blame? Who does it go on? Because he has the same guys. So what am I supposed to do with that? And if he deserved a bunch of credit for last year and presumably deserves a bunch of blame for this year, then we should be giving Aaron Boone a bunch of credit for how much better the Yankees are this year than they were last year, right?
I mean, I think you can credit managers in playoff series without saying like I think Bruce Bochy has historically, you know, not maximized his team's win total over 162.
Well, that's certainly true.
Right. I don't doubt that he's a good playoff game manager, whatever that's worth. But like, I don't think it's, you know, like I think it's fair to say he has some part in what's going on this year. I don't feel like it's a quantifiable total. And I think a replacement manager would not, you know, I think you're right to kind of ascertain that like another manager could do what Bruce Bochy does, and the narrative of the manager, it gets credit, probably too much credit. I don't feel like it's fair to say Bruce Bochy doesn't deserve credit for last year. But if you're going to view, if it's the same guys, I view each season kind of like isolated, like each team has a different story. And Bruce Bochy definitely, for whatever reason, couldn't figure out how to push the right buttons this year for whatever it's worth. The underperformance, sure, it's part of it. But I certainly think like if there's a World Series hangover, I'm fine with saying he didn't get the guys, you know, he didn't do what he needed to do.
Doesn't that feel like squishy to you though? Like if it's a World Series hangover, but Bruce Bochy's such a good manager. Shouldn't a good manager know how to manage them out of a World Series hangover? What if it's just a lot more random than we want to act like it is?
I don't think it's random. I think it's minimal. Like I'm willing to say some guys are good managers, but I think it accounts for such a small portion. Like
so you would say that Bruce Bochy got too much credit for last year.
I think I would say more he's not getting a blame for this year. I don't know. It might
be both. I mean, it depends on what what your kind of initial perspective is. If your perspective is Bruce Bochy deserves a lot of credit for last year, then he should get a lot of blame for this year. If your perspective is he got too much credit for last year, he's still probably not getting enough blame for this year. But I don't know. Yeah. I just had to get that out there. I think consistently the manager stuff is treated with such idiocy that I just like to, get out and be an antagonist about it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it was the same position with the Yankees and Aaron Boone. Like, I feel like I wouldn't care if I was a Rangers fan right now. Like, if Aaron Boone wins this year, I don't really care what he does next year. So
sure, but do you think the 2010 Yankees were good because they had good players who played well, or because Joe Girardi had some mastery of baseball management that he was able to manage them away from a World Series hangover, even though he had never won a World Series before, and Bruce Bochy has 3? So theoretically, Bruce Bochy should, it just all falls apart for me somewhere.
I think it's all random in the sense that the way people want to think about it doesn't exist. I mean, I think there is, there is some aspect of it, but to me, it's more I don't know, it's the good and the bad teams are going to be good or bad, and the manager can help them in whatever minimally way, possible. Sure. But I don't think Joe Girardi had any specific role in the 2010 Yankees, but I think Joe Girardi was, a good manager in the sense that he was a good players manager for a veteran team, and for whatever reason, that helped them, whatever. It's all more fuzzy. Yeah. I think I don't have the reason, but I think that the credit or the blame should definitely be more minimal than people ascertain. I don't think I'm with you in that. I think, all managers could be interchanged, but I do think some managers get a lot more credit than they deserve.
Would you say that
Girardi on the Phillies, people want to say Girardi on the Phillies was a train wreck, and I don't think he should have come back to the Yankees because the performance on the Phillies was pretty disqualifying, and I don't want a 15-year veteran who's managing that kind of bullpen to come back. I don't know.
Would you say that the manager of the Yankees waits for you, kick him once for me?
I would. Yeah, it's more fun to sing Christmas songs about the Yankees manager than actually talk about it.
I would agree. Let's answer some listener and follower questions. So first, from Griff, with the Yankees bullpen being basically back to fully healthy and them switching out Stroman to the bullpen, and it seems like maybe Nestor as well, but right now Stroman, the sixth man in the rotation, is in the bullpen, and Nestor's in the starting rotation. Is this team set for both starting and relief pitchers in the postseason, and can that get them over the top? So I do think they're set. I think it's possible that we see Lou Trevino still. I think we have to hold that option open. I think the real question here is, if you had 4 starting pitchers in the playoffs, because at least in the ALDS, you only need 4, or you need no more than 4. Who would they be? Because they have 6 healthy guys right now.
Which is, again, knock on wood, because I feel like
look, there are too many games left, even now, for us to count those chickens. Absolutely.
I mean, Cole Rodon, I think, is kind of locked in for 1 and 2, and I'm definitely on board with that. I'm going to say Clark Schmidt in the rotation. I'm going to say Luis Gil in the bullpen. I'm going to say Nestor in the rotation, and Stroman. I think Stroman should just not pitch. So I think I really have liked what I've seen from Schmidt and Gil. I just feel like I trust Schmidt a tiny bit more, even though Gil has the more overpowering stuff. I worry about the walks. I worry about just losing it in a playoff start. And I still feel like I want to see what it looks like out of the bullpen. And I think Nestor, for a game 4 starter who, if I'm correct, do they need 3 or 4 in the ALDS? So I feel like I never can remember this.
Let me see. So the ALDS, I mean, last time they used 4, right? But
they, no, they used 3 last time, but there was rainouts, and there's
you're right. Okay, so ALDS game 1, October 5th, game 2, October 7th, game 3, October 9th, game 4, October 10th, game 5, October 12th. They could do that with 3.
So you could do it with 3, and I guess that means the 4th starter isn't necessary for the ALDS. But so really, if you need a 3rd starter, like, I mean, I guess I really want Clark Schmidt starting playoff games. I didn't think I'd be saying that, but
I agree.
I want him starting playoff games. I've just been really impressed coming back. April and May were incredible. I think incredible development for him. And I think Nestor was the 2nd starter in 2022. I know he's had ups and downs, but I trust him to throw the innings necessary for a starter. I worry with Heel that, like, if it comes apart, then, like, you're really taxing the bullpen. I guess the counter is you would have, a backup starter to piggyback him or something. But I don't know. Like, part of me is intrigued by what it looks like in the bullpen. I think a bigger part just wants a little more certainty and a little more, like, not veteran presence, but just a guy who can come in and get reliable innings, who might not have to pitch as many games as the top 3 starters. So I know people are going to want Heel in the bullpen. That's just my perspective.
Yeah, I just feel like I share your reservations about Heel, and I share your intuition that, like, it's nice to have guys with a little more experience in the playoff rotation. And maybe if you only need 3 starters in the ALDS, it's Cole, Rodon, someone, and then, Cole, Rodon, and one of Schmidt, Heel, Nestor, and the other 2 are available as, long options whenever for whomever. I agree. I want Clark Schmidt starting playoff games, so I would have Cole, Rodon, Schmidt. I might have Heel there, though, because just when Heel is cruising, he's unhittable, which is really cool. But again, it can go off the rails so quickly, as you kind of pointed out. I don't know. What I do know is I'm confident they have the guys in the room to get it done. How they'll be deployed might even be less important than just that they have the guys, which I think is a nice situation to be in. On the topic of Carlos Rodon, his season has been such an interesting run, and I've referred to it as like a weird 3-act play. So act 1, he has this 2.93 ERA, which is awesome, but all his peripherals are like, hey, dude, that might not be totally legit. And then the regression monster hits hard, and he gets absolutely shelled for 5 starts, but he starts missing bats again. And sure, the walks go up, but like 12K per 9, I'll take that. And at that time, the peripherals say he's not actually this bad. And then he settles into where he's been for the last 11 starts, where his, surface stats are really good, really solid, and the peripherals say, hey, this guy's been really solid. So I'm more confident in Carlos Rodon today than I've been in him at any other time in his tenure with the Yankees, at least since he made his debut, which I think is a great place to be. And the fact that with this performance, where now he's not only matched up his underlying numbers to his surface stats, but also kind of been on this journey of self-discovery and rediscovered the elements of the guy that he was in 21 and 22, I think that's worth being really excited about.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. I think, like, the blowups for him have been more minimal and the peripherals are there. I mean, I even think of the game where I saw him in DC and things were off the rails in the first 2 innings. And then he threw about 4 more innings of scoreless baseball. And, like, at the time, definitely frustrating. But I think in the context of this larger picture, like, he is someone who, even when it's going bad, he's now, I think, for the first time as a Yankee, shown an ability to turn it around.
Sure.
I just, like, for me, I trust Garrett Cole. I probably trust Clark Schmidt, like, second most. Not that I don't trust Rodon, but, like, if I'm gonna gamble on, a guy who has like the high upside stuff who might blow up every once in a while, I want to be Rodon and I want Schmidt there, and I want Rodon breaking the two of them up, or I want Nestor there and Rodon between Cole and Nestor.
Sure.
So I don't know. Like I want to want Heel in that rotation. It just it goes really bad for him sometimes, and I am a little worried. I think we're agreed on Stroman just not being in the.
Yeah, I don't want to see Marcus Stroman pitching innings that matter.
I love the take that Cashman acquired him just to put him in the bullpen,
so that he could show he was right about what he said a few years ago.
Yeah, and I'm really funny. It's not true, but it's like a 0.0001% chance it's true.
From Kenny Glantz at KMcAwesome, Yankees 23 games between June 13th and July 9th, 6-17. Yankees the rest of the season, 81-46. Which one is the real Yankees?
I mean, this season has made me pissed off about the cutting season into chunks game that people play, because you could do it at any point and you can make the numbers look any way you want them to. If you go back right now to that June 6th date, the Yankees look like a mediocre team. If you go back to July 27th, they look like a great team. You could just use that to say for whatever you want. They're good, they're bad. So the real Yankees are whatever their record is right now. No more chopping, no more splicing. It's just the team. They've been good, they've been bad. Every team is good, every team is bad. And if as we talked about preseason, looking like last year, if they end up around 94, 95, 93 wins, I think taking a 11, 12 win jump from last year's team, given the additions, given what's shaken out, it all makes a lot of sense. It's, not going to say they're a 106 win team, not going to say they're a 75 win team. They are who they are.
From Rob Sasso at Sasso CT, rank Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, and Kei Igawa by their WRC plus while on the Yankees. More of a challenge than a question, but this will be good content, I bet.
Did Kei Igawa get an at-bat?
Kei Igawa got multiple plate appearances. Let's see.
Given the nature of the question, I
just want to pull this back up. So Kei Igawa got 2 plate appearances for the New York Yankees.
Given the nature of the question, I'm inclined to rank him first.
And you would be correct. So Kei Igawa had 2 plate appearances as a Yankee. They both came in the same game, which was at San Francisco in 2007. He had a walk, and I'm trying to find what else. But he had a 353 WRC plus as a Yankee. So that raises the question, who's second? Juan Soto or Aaron Judge?
Aaron Judge, right?
Aaron Judge, wrong.
Is it Soto? I really thought Judge had gone up above.
Judge is at 172 and Soto's at 175 or 176. So Kei Igawa in his Yankee career, 2 plate appearances, 1 walk, 1 sacrifice bunt off Matt Cain. In games in which Kei Igawa got a plate appearance, the Yankees are undefeated.
So does Kei Igawa have a better WRC plus in San Francisco than Barry Bonds?
Oh yeah, I mean it's 353.
That raises the third and most important question,
which is Kei Igawa the greatest hitter of all time?
I mean the numbers don't lie.
I don't know anyone else with 1,000 OBP. I can tell you that much.
There we go. He justified the contract after all.
Isn't he? I believe he is the Yankees AAA pitching wins and certainly pitching innings leader.
Yeah. I do tough. Like the sub genre of okay to good. Okay, I wouldn't say he's good. Okay players who just spend a lot of time at one AAA team, like the Bobby Dahlbeck experience.
Sure, the Bobby's Dahlbeck.
How is he 29, Bobby Dahlbeck?
There's so much about that doesn't make sense to me. From Spreadsheet Enjoyer at Wells Enjoyer with 2 R's. Who is coming out of the NL?
I'm going to say the Brewers. They're
I mean, best run differential.
Yeah. like people are sleeping on the Brewers.
I
Everyone's gonna say
think
Phillies or Dodgers. I really think the Brewers deserve some respect.
I think you're right that people are sleeping on the Brewers. They have the best run differential. They have the most, or sorry, the Diamondbacks have the most position player Fangraphs WAR in baseball. 10th in WRC plus. Yeah, I think the Brewers could be good. The team that I'm starting to worry about is Arizona, but I think the helpful thing with Arizona is even though they're very likely to make the playoffs, they are not going to win the division, which just makes it so much more difficult to get out. I mean, I'll just take the Phillies because the Phillies are really good and their pitching is phenomenal. But I kind of like the Milwaukee pick. Milwaukee actually has more Fangraphs WAR from position players than the Phillies. The Phillies are just, really, really good pitching team. Best of anyone not named the Atlanta Braves.
And Yankees Brewers World Series. I mean, come on.
Dude, I can't lose a Yankees Brewers World Series. I got Rake Barrels. Shout out to @NameThatYank who sent me this signed Jake Bauers card. And Gary, just like either the Yankees get a win or Gary gets a ring, which is the Yankees getting a ring. So yeah, I win either way. I'm rooting for a Yankees Brewers World Series. Absolutely.
Baseline introductions in Game 1 of the World Series, and Gary Sanchez comes out. What happens? Like
he definitely gets relentlessly booed.
People are gonna rely. I don't know.
People hate him.
People still hate him.
I think people still hate him.
Didn't he?
People get mad at me when I tweet about Gary Sanchez doing good things.
Okay. That would be so funny, though.
It would be amazing. Further questions from Wells Enjoyer. Who do you see being the Yankees' first baseman and second baseman next year? First base is a platoon of Ben Rice and a right-handed hitter that the Yankees don't have to be in love with, so that if Rice just wins the job, they're not like kicking themselves over getting rid of the righty. And second base is Jazz.
You think there's no chance?
I think there's no chance.
Even with the good play? I mean, I think there's like, I think there's a small chance they might offer him the qualifying based on what's happening.
Maybe.
But I also think he might still just decline it. I don't know, but he really likes being a Yankee. Gleyber Torres has definitely turned his season around a little bit, but I agree it's going to be Jazz. Do the Yankees bring back Rizzo? I have a hard time seeing them.
They can't.
I feel like there's a confidence issue with Ben Rice, unfortunately.
There might be, but it's like, I think the difference is if you go into the season telling Ben Rice, hey, we're going to start you every time we play a righty at first base, you are our guy. And that's just what it is from spring training. Honestly, a Ben Rice, Oswaldo. Oh no, shit. They hit from the same side. Well, I was going to say a Ben Rice, Oswaldo Cabrera platoon, but that actually wouldn't work. I think it's Ben Rice and someone, and I think they can fix the confidence thing with Ben Rice, because I think like part of the problem with the Ben Rice situation was there was all this urgency. The Yankees really needed someone to be good at first base, and he was doing so well, and then he couldn't handle the decline, and the Yankees didn't feel like they could afford to continue to show belief and confidence in him during the decline. I think if from February on, it's just like, hey, Ben, you're most of the time our first baseman, like you can avoid that.
Yeah, I think that right-handed hitter, there's a good chance that might be DJ LeMahieu, or at least there might be.
I'm worried that you're right about that.
I'm not opposed to letting him show up and see what he's got, but I feel like in my mind that involves a very short leash. In the Yankees' mind, it probably is a much larger leash.
Yeah,
but it will be interesting, I think, if they, what they decide to do with him, because I think cutting bait might just be the best solution, but you could just go all in on acquiring a third baseman and give him like a platoon opportunity at first. And I think Ben Rice is definitely someone who should be getting opportunities there. And I'm a little worried about Rizzo. That's why I said that. Like, worried about Rizzo. LeMahieu platoon.
We got to rapid fire the rest of these. Do the Yankees re-sign Clay? If not, do they sign any pitchers? I'm going with no, because he'll be too expensive, and yes, but I have no idea who those guys are.
I'm going with they're going to re-sign him. Something in my gut tells me they're going to re-sign him.
I'd love that. From Red Sox West Coast, how about this crossover? Is Roderick Arias the next Yankee #1 prospect? So he's been on fire for like 2.5 months now, which is great, but he's still in low A, and he, has the like kind of high strikeout thing, but he's also doing the high walk thing that you would want to see. Right now, he's the Yankees #5 prospect per Fangraphs. Like, he's a good player. He only just turned 20, so like it's not like he's behind schedule. I think it's just like, if you count on graduation for Jones, Dominguez, Warren, and Hampton first, I think the tough part is just like, I think it's going to be George Lombard, but
I was going to say the same.
Yeah. From S Castro at S Castro 87, what's the lowest level of offense Volpe could provide next year for the Yankees not to look for another option at shortstop? 80 WRC plus. Like, I think the Yankees are pretty locked in on him. He's a very good defender and base runner. He's a good baseball player who can't hit. Like, that's the thing. And he's going to have some BABIP runs that are fun, and he's going to have some times where he is useless at the plate, but through it all, he's going to end up being a valuable baseball player. So like, I think it would have to get really, really bad. Like possibly like Andrelton Simmons bad.
Is there anything to him not starting again tonight, or?
That's a great question. I don't think so, because it seems like it's just all about handedness, and maybe trying to put him in some more advantageous situations helps him offensively, but I don't think it's like, oh, this is the Yankees not believing in Anthony Volpe. I think it's just the Yankees understanding who Anthony Volpe is at this level a little bit better and trying to put together the best lineup in the right matchups. From Ryan at RJNYY0, who could you see the Yankees replacing Rizzo with at first base next year? Do you think they just let Rice cook? I think we just talked about that. From S Castro again, if the Yankees are able to sign Soto, what position is Judge playing in 3 years, first base or left field? I mean, probably in 3 years, neither. And he's at DH, because isn't that around the time that the Stanton stuff wraps up? It's definitely not left field. If he's not willing to play, like if he doesn't feel comfortable playing left field today, he's not going to do it in 2027.
Yeah. I mean, maybe Soto goes back to left field if that happens.
Maybe. I actually like this one because I think we can do a fun rapid fire. From Mammoth at Mammoth3, favorite player on every team. So I have just the league standings in order of worst to best record up, and I think we just rip it. I'll say the team, you say a player, I say a player.
Okay.
Are you ready?
No.
Okay. Chicago White Sox.
See, I'm not ready. I mean, Andrew Benintendi, I gotta stick up for him.
Oh my gosh.
Bad team.
That's out of control. Luis Robert, Miami Marlins.
Jeez. I don't know.
You got to pick someone.
Who's even on the Marlins these days?
Almost nobody.
Skip Schumacher.
Okay. I'll go with Connor Norby. Colorado Rockies.
Oh, Ezequiel Tovar.
Oh, that's a good answer. Ryan McMahon. Los Angeles Angels.
Other than Ron Washington. I mean, I'll go with Zach Neto. I've been impressed by him.
I'll go with Taylor Ward. I love Taylor Ward. Oakland A's.
Brent Rooker.
Yeah, I agree, but I'll go Lawrence Butler. Washington Nationals.
I gotta go with CJ Abrams.
Ooh, that's a good one. I think Tanner Rainey is still there, so I'll go with Tanner Rainey. Pittsburgh Pirates. That's incredible. Pittsburgh Pirates.
Andrew McCutcheon.
Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. Texas Rangers.
Marcus Semien. No, Adolis Garcia. I'm sorry.
You keep taking the ones that I want to take. I'll
fine.
go.
Change mine. Andrew Heaney.
Okay, then I'll take Adolis Garcia. San Francisco Giants.
Blake Snell.
Matt Chapman. Toronto Blue Jays.
Oh geez, I hate this team.
Yeah.
Bowden Francis. Don't not hate him.
Oh yeah, I guess that's a good answer. They don't have Kevin Biggio, who went to my college anymore. Chad Green.
Oh, that's a good one.
Cincinnati Reds.
Ellie.
Yeah, I'll go with who's the one who's suspended for steroids? Christian Encarnacion Strand.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'll go with him. Tampa Bay Rays.
I was gonna say Randy.
Yeah.
I was gonna say Zach Eflin too.
Oh man.
Oh, well, I'm gonna steal yours if I say that. I know who you're gonna say. It. Christopher Morel.
Yeah, that is mine. I'll go Brandon Lau, I guess. I like him even though I'm scared of him. St. Louis Cardinals.
Eric Fetty Wap.
I'll go Wilson Contreras. Boston Red Sox. Ugh.
Pass.
Yeah. Greg Weissert. I don't know.
Danny Jansen, because he's playing horribly.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Who's the worst player? That's my guy. Chicago Cubs.
Pete Crow Armstrong.
Seiya Suzuki. Seattle Mariners.
Brian Wu, who's pitching tonight.
Oh, that's a good one. Mitch Garver. Detroit Tigers.
I gotta say Scooble.
Matt Vierling. Minnesota Twins.
Buxton.
Okay, I'll take. I actually like Pablo Lopez. A good deal. Atlanta Braves.
I respect Sale for doing what he's doing, even though he's a former Red Sox.
Oh,
he has helped me a lot in fantasy this year. So
I don't know if I could do that. I like Max Fried. Went to the same high school as my sophomore year college roommate. Houston Astros.
Jose Abreu.
That's what I would have taken. Yeah, whoever's bad, I don't know. John Singleton. Kansas City Royals.
Salvador Perez.
Yeah. I don't even know.
They're a likable team, though.
Lucas Urseg. New York Mets.
Saw them.
Yeah, I did.
New York Mets. Jose Iglesias.
Mark Vientos. Arizona Diamondbacks.
Grimace. Jordan Montgomery. Poor Jordan.
Yeah, that's who I was going to take. So I guess I'll go with they have Eugenio Suarez, don't they?
Yeah.
Baltimore Orioles.
I'm curious who yours would be for this. Probably Adley.
Cedric Mullins.
Okay.
San Diego Padres.
Manny Machado.
Yeah, that's who mine would be. So I guess I don't know, Kyle Higashioka.
Oh, actually, I'll trade with you.
Okay. Cleveland Guardians.
Don't
do it.
Oh, come on.
He's mine.
Okay, fine. Darn it. Jose Ramirez, but it's actually who you're gonna say.
Yeah, John Kenzie Noel.
Yes.
Milwaukee Brewers. Which one do you want?
I'll take Bryce Terang.
Oh, come on, Gary Sanchez. You were supposed to take Jake Bauers. New York Yankees.
Garrett Cole.
Gleyber Torres. Los Angeles Dodgers.
I respect Yamamoto a lot after what I saw in June. Like, I really do actually respect him. So, and I love Mookie Betts. I'll say it's a tie between them.
Yeah, I really like Mookie. And Philadelphia Phillies.
Brandon Marsh.
Oh, interesting.
Or Zach Wheeler. Zach Wheeler's really good.
Oh, mine's Aaron Nola.
You do like Nola?
I do.
Wow, I forgot how hard it is to remember a player. Yeah, I remember all the players except when you asked me that question.
Exactly. From Joey at DJL MVP, tier list of the Battle of New York crew. Okay, here it is. Top tier, Rich Hernandez. Immediately, like so close, but not quite on Rich's level, the rest of you.
I co-sign.
Yeah. I mean, Rich is just, they're all great, but Rich is, from Taylor Jackson at Taylor Jackson 17, Heel versus Woo tonight. When was the last time two starting pitchers faced off that only had 3 letters in each of their last names?
That's pretty good. I don't even remember many starting pitchers, one starting pitcher with 3 letters in their last name. So
yeah, I mean,
Katie
like,
Sharp probably knows, right?
Yeah, I'm sure Katie Sharp does know. Like, did Dai Sung Koo ever, like, I guess he never even started a game. So I can't tell you. All right. That was fun answering those questions. Whipple, it's time to wrap up the podcast and let the Yankees get on their way on this West Coast trip. Beginning, as we said, tonight with Louis Hill versus Brian Wu in Seattle. But first, we, of course, have to address our confidence out of 10 in the New York Yankees. Go ahead.
I mean, I'm going to say 8.5 still. I'm going to hold there. I think, until things are wrapped up, that's just like how I feel about the team right now. Like, things largely haven't changed. The good players are started hitting again, which is really nice. And I think the bullpen is definitely a lot further along, the way to being answered than it was a week ago. The offense is, wasn't all the way there this week, but I think the pitching staff really picked it up. And then we saw great signs of life in some of the weekend games. And, Aaron Judge hitting home runs again. Maybe I should go up to a 9 because of that. I'll say 8.75. I'll give him a little boost because Friday's game was so much fun to watch. And also I think Judge and Soto having signature moments this week, like watching the game you went to with Soto going down with injury and then homering, like that is Juan Soto. I think seeing some of those moments boosted my confidence ever so slightly.
Yeah, I mean, I can't go to a walk-off win in which I see Juan Soto hit a huge home run and not go up to a 9. One thing that I don't want to suggest I'm doing is just taking if I made the PECOTA chances that the Yankees win the division a fraction out of 10, I'm not just taking the numerator, although that would be a fair thing for me to do, I guess, and it would be a 9. But yeah, I'm at a 9 as well. I had an awesome time at that game with Joey. It was a very cool game to go to. I hate extra innings so much, but I'm very happy that the Yankees won.
I've been to, let's see, how many? I think I've been to 3 extra inning games at the stadium. Oh, I guess 1 was the playoff game. So 2 with the Manfred man, 1 win, 1 loss. But yeah, either way, like you're like, you don't know what's going to happen. That's the feeling I've had every time is like, it's a coin flip now. And that's not how extra innings should be. Like it should be, chosen by more than just the randomness of who can get a bunt down. And
yeah, the rules of baseball should be the same in extra innings as in the rest of the game, I would argue. Whipple, this brings us to the end of the podcast, the second to last podcast of the regular season. Is this the penultimate regular season podcast?
I think so.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it would be appropriate for me to ask you if you have any parting shots then.
Well, do you have anything to watch on Netflix next spring? Do you have any plans? Any documentaries you're circling?
I tend to like the F1 show, but I don't know what the release cadence is for that. Outer Banks is coming out pretty soon, so I'll be done with that by the spring. Do you have a recommendation maybe of something I might?
Stranger Things might release its new season. I don't know if you're into that, but in case they don't, there's actually another documentary I've been meaning to tell you about. It's the story of the most mediocre team in baseball history, one that is going to be not quite miserable enough for us to completely enjoy, but not quite joyous enough for Boston fans to celebrate. It's going to be in the sweet spot of like, this should not have been made but I'm just going to fast forward to the parts that are, most of the second half of it's going to be pretty bad. So
yeah,
I'll fast forward to that. I'm going to watch Alex Cora talk about the Red Sox making a potential playoff run based on one game of a series they lost 3-1. It's really some entertaining stuff, and I hope you're going to watch too. It really is disappointing that MLB had this great opportunity to expand the game, and they chose one team to follow, clearly a team that wasn't going to do well.
Yeah.
And they didn't do well.
I think the question that this documentary will raise for a lot of people is, how would the Red Sox season have gone if they were up at the plate with tennis rackets?
Exactly. Maybe that next season they can cross over with like the F1 show and the Full Swing documentary.
Or the tennis show. There's a tennis show, right? Breakpoint.
Yeah. But it's tough to be a Boston fan at this point. I commented to you that this documentary is going to be almost unwatchable, but I think the last 2 episodes will be enjoyable. I'm going to hate the part in like the second episode where they do well and it's like the no one believes in us story, and then they just end up finishing 78 and 84.
Turns out no one believes in them because nobody should believe in them. And let me tell you, couldn't happen to a better group of people.
For sure.
All right, Whipple, that brings us to the end of this podcast. We thank everyone, as always, for listening. People can keep up with everything we do at yankeesfiles.com. They can follow us on Twitter, where we are at Yankees Files. The podcast is available wherever you get your podcasts. We hope that if you enjoyed it, you will rate, review, subscribe, give it 5 stars, like it, comment, any of those things that are good. If you didn't like it, we hope you just listen to it, download it, juice those numbers, but don't bother leaving your negative feedback anywhere. As I said, the podcast is available wherever you get your podcasts. If you're a Spotify listener, you can get video there, and the whole video podcast, of course, also goes up on YouTube, youtube.com/@crosstownsports, where you can also get the Battle of New York, Rich Hernandez and the team. You can find them all at their respective Twitters, as well as at twitter.com/crosstownsn, crosstownsn on Twitter. For Yankees Files plus Battle in New York, Whipple, you and I will be back for the final podcast of the 2024 regular season, which I can't believe is already impending. Similar time, similar place next week prior to the Baltimore series. I'll actually be at Game 1 of the Baltimore series a week from today. And until then, let's go Yankees.